If you've been scrolling through endless dust collector listings, watching the same 900 CFM and 1.5 HP numbers pop up, and still feel a knot in your stomach because you're not sure which machine actually lives up to the hype, you're not alone. I've been in that exact spot, standing in my workshop trying to picture how a 25-gallon drum would fit between my table saw and router, wondering whether the extra horsepower would actually make a difference on a day of sanding and cutting, and worrying that I might end up with a noisy, underpowered unit that just gathers dust on the floor. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. In this review, I'm going to walk through the real-world experience of the Laguna flux 1.5 horsepower 110v Cyclone dust collector, point out the hidden trade-offs that you won't find on the spec sheet, and help you decide if it's the right fit for your shop or if you should keep looking. First off, let's talk about the kind of workshop environment where the flux 1 really shines. I've seen it installed in a 1,220-foot space that houses a table saw, a bandsaw, a small CNC router, and a workbench with a bench grinder. The key here is that the machine sits on a concrete slab, the 25-gallon octagon drum sits directly on the floor, and the 900 CFM airflow is channeled through a standard 6-inch hose into a series of short elbows leading to each tool. In that setup, the dust collector does more than just pull a faint wisp of sawdust. It actually keeps the air in the room clear enough that you can see the wood grain on your workpiece without a haze of fine particles. That's the kind of practical difference that matters when you're sanding for a finish or trying to keep your respirator off for a whole day. Now, the motor. A 1.5 HP unit on 110V is a sweet spot for most home shops that aren't wired for 220V. The motor spins up quickly, so you don't have to wait 10 minutes for the fan to reach full speed before you start cutting. In practice, I've heard the motor hum at a moderate pitch the moment you flip the switch, and the airflow ramps up within a few seconds. For someone who runs a series of short cuts, think a batch of 24s for a framing project. The quick start saves you time and prevents the buildup of dust between cuts. The motor also runs relatively quietly for a Cyclone system. You won't need to shout over a deafening roar to hear a conversation across the shop. One of the biggest practical strengths of the flux 1 is the octagon drum design. The shape isn't just for looks. It creates a more efficient separation chamber. As the dust-laden air swirls around the drum, heavier particles drop out into the 25-gallon bucket, while finer dust continues onto the filter. In a real-world scenario, you'll notice the bucket filling up more slowly than with a cylindrical drum of the same volume, because the Cyclone action does a better job of settling larger chips early. This means fewer trips to empty the bucket when you're in the middle of a big sanding job, and it also reduces the chance of fine dust escaping back into the air when you pull the hose off. However, there are trade-offs that are easy to miss if you only glance at the spec sheet. The 25-gallon capacity is generous, but the drum sits low to the ground. In a shop where you have a lot of floor-level storage, you'll need to dedicate a clear spot for it, otherwise you risk bumping tools or tripping. The footprint is roughly the size of a small ottoman, so plan your layout accordingly. Another hidden cost is the noise level when the fan is at full speed. While the motor itself isn't ear-splitting, the Cyclone vortex creates a low-frequency thrum that can vibrate through a thin concrete slab. If your shop has poor insulation, you might hear the hum in adjacent rooms, which could be a concern if you share the space with a home office or a living area. Who should consider buying this dust collector? If you're a hobbyist or a small business woodworker who runs a mix of cutting, sanding, and routing on a regular basis, the flux 1 offers enough airflow to keep most dust-generating tools under control without the need for a separate shop vacuum for each station. It's especially appealing if you're limited to a 110V circuit because the motor delivers solid performance without demanding a dedicated 220V line. The freight delivery option also means you won't have to wrestle the unit onto a truck. It arrives on a pallet with a dolly, ready to be rolled into place, which saves you a lot of hassle if you don't have a forklift. On the other hand, if you're a professional shop that runs large panel saws, industrial sanders, or high-speed CNC routers that demand airflow well beyond 900 CFM, you'll likely outgrow this model quickly. The motor's horsepower, while